everyone. Welcome back to the show. We've
Back.
been gone for 2 months.
Well, we've watched two new movies in the meantime. We're going to talk about both of them because one is a remake of the other one.
Mm-hmm. Yes. I was expecting you to introduce it, so I was like, I'm just sitting here like,
I'll leave it open for you.
yeah, if you want to.
Yeah, the thing we're going to be talking about today is, in fact, Nosferatu. Both
Yes.
the 20?
1922 was when the original Nosferatu came out, and then Robert Eggers' remake of the movie came out last year in 2024. I think on Christmas Day, if I remember correctly. Like within the last few months it came out.
Yeah, it's a very recent movie there, and
Yeah.
both of them are very enjoyable.
But yeah, at the time of recording in almost the end of March of 2025, that would make actually what month? I don't know when. I don't know if they'd have that information, but at the end of last year with the remake came out, the original was 102 years old.
It's really interesting getting to watch this incredibly old vampire movie that was really the very first vampire movie. I'm really happy, despite the lawsuit that it wound up landing back in the day, that it still prevails. I'm really happy we can still get to see it today.
Yeah. So I just checked on the ye old internet. I don't know why I said ye old internet like a weirdo. So the Nosferatu Symphony of Horror as we know it was made in 1922, but no one knew when it was made in 1922. The only release date that we have for the original film was June 1st of 1929, which was 9 years later. Or no, it was uh my math isn't mathing. What is 1922 minus 1920? Oh my god, I can't.
What is it? What are the dates?
1929 minus 1922. It's 7 years old. Oh my gosh. Yeah, so the movie was made in 1922, but it was actually fully released in the way that we know it now today in 7 years later in 1929. That's insane.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
I'm still surprised that it's actually around.
Yeah, because it almost became lost media, right?
Yeah, it was almost completely like ripped. It was almost completely disbanded. Not
Yeah.
disbanded, but gotten rid of because of the lawsuit that it landed,
Hmm.
specifically with Bram Stoker's widow. Because
Yeah.
if you haven't seen Nosferatu, it's pretty much just Dracula.
It is exactly Dracula. What are you talking
There's,
about? It's just like they took the
yeah,
characters of Dracula and then kind of like replaced it.
there's a couple things changed. It also is interestingly the very first time vampires have been shown to be damaged in the sunlight, which was a change made from the actual the actual book, because Dracula is seen in the daylight in the book originally,
Hmm.
and this is like the very first time that sunlight is bad for vampires. It's something that prevails even to this day. With when anytime someone talks about like vampires, they always say, "Yeah, I can't go in the daylight."
That's where this came from.
Mhm. It was
But yeah, like,
changed in an attempt to avoid the lawsuit, because to avoid the staking scene that happens in the original Dracula.
hmm
But absolutely nothing they tried worked. And when Bram Stoker's widow sued it originally, they ordered for the destruction of pretty much all the copies. So the fact that we even
yeah.
have the film is amazing.
Do you know the exact logistics of the lawsuit? Because I think it's very fascinating. I was able to come across what actually happened with it.
I don't actually. What are they?
So basically, what happened was, like you stated, it was not Nosferatu was an unauthorized adaptation of Bram Stoker's Dracula. At this point, the movie had not yet come out. Universal's movie haven't come out, but the book was, because the book came out in like the 1800s somewhere. I can't remember exactly where. I think in like 1897, if I remember correct. But The film changed names and the details to avoid copyright issues, but that didn't help. So Stoker's widow, Florence, I believe her name was, sued the production for all of its profits, only to find that the film had none because it really badly flopped in the box office. So instead, a judge ordered that all of the copies of the film were to be destroyed. And fortunately, I think only 2 copies were found to exist because the movie was only screened. So they didn't have many copies to begin with.
Yeah, so they just pretty much had only the original like celluloid tapes that were made.
Mhm. Exactly. But yeah, if you put Nosferatu and Dracula up together, it is basically the same scene or the same movie. They just kind of changed some certain scenes about it, and then like Jonathan Harker is Thomas Hutter, Mina Harker is obviously Ellen, um
Oh man, they really
Knock is Renfield, like
they
Abraham
barely.
Van Helsing is completely gone. Like he's not even in
Yeah, Van Helsing's.
Nosferatu.
There's kind of a Van Helsing like character in the newer one, but he's just complete. That character is non-existent in the original movie.
Mhm.
Um, which was the recent one was played by, was it Willem Dafoe, right?
It was.
And I loved his performance as I forgot what that character's name was, Doctor something or other.
Uh Let me look it up because I actually don't remember the guy's name either. Nosferatu. He was. Oh my goodness, this is a name. Albin Eberhard von Franz. So he's Dr. von Franz.
Yeah, Doctor Franz. I remember him.
Because in the original novelization of Dracula, we have a Dr. John Seward, but he was the doctor that came into the room after Mina got bit by Dracula and was kind of the one taking care of her. Abraham Van Helsing was kind of like the guy's like, yeah, no, this bite on her neck, this is from the supernatural. Dr. John Seward was like, no, this girl is just sick with something. We don't know what
Yeah,
happened to her.
and
So,
Wyrd is in the new movie as well. Like, he was his own
yes.
character.
hmm Yeah, it's just like which was a very interesting choice that they made with the new the remake of Nosferatu rather than the original. I kind of like the idea of having an Abraham Van Helsing like character because then again, when you're talking about the original film, you kind of have to treat it with a grain of salt because there is a very good chance that there could have been a character like that in the original that we just never got to see because the film as we know it is just a Frankenstein of all the footage they were able to recover fully.
Yeah.
Because the version that we have is not even the full version. It's just what we ended up getting.
There's even some spots in there that seem like there's an entire scenes missing.
Oh
Particularly
yeah,
the
100%.
werewolf scene in the beginning of it seems either shoehorned in, and it feels like it's set up poorly because the
hmm
werewolf gets mentioned one time and it chases the horses away. But this is not a problem because the horses get chased back the next morning. And it feels
hmm
like there should have been probably more scenes in there.
Yeah. So, I mean, you gotta be kind to it because we don't know what the original
Yeah.
version could have been because we'll probably unfortunately never get to see it. But we have to appreciate for what we have because
Yeah.
either way it's still a good movie. I like it. It's a testament of time. It is the first vampire movie that
Yeah.
is ever to exist. So I mean, it's film history, and we have to treat it as such.
Yeah. I'm happy that it still even exists because it's created probably my favorite genre of movie, and I fucking love vampire movies. If I had to
I
pick a
know.
favorite like mythological like monster, it'd be vampires.
Yeah, or what about the hyena werewolf that we
Oh,
never get to
fucking
see in
hell.
the remake?
Yeah, in the original movie, that werewolf scene I'm talking about is quite literally the Hutter shows up, townsfolk, and he's like, "I need to go to Orlok's castle." And they're like, "No, you gotta stay the night. There's a werewolf
There's a
wandering around."
werewolf outside.
They cut to the werewolf, and it's just a spotted hyena. Like they didn't change anything about it. They're just like, "Ah, fuck it." They don't know what a werewolf looks like.
I love that scene so much because it's like, oh my gosh, this werewolf's outside, and it pans to like the scene. And you just see like this little hyena kind of like meandering its way through the like a already made path. It's so funny.
And it's got such a
He's just
pleasant look on
chilling,
its
going
face.
through the woods.
It's got such a pleasant look on its face. It's not snarling. It's not doing anything mean. It's just kind of walking.
It's too cute to be a. If that's a werewolf, that's the cutest werewolf I've ever seen. If I do say so myself,
I wonder if werewolf is a mistranslation from lycanthrope.
maybe.
I wonder if since they didn't know what the hell that meant, they're just like, yeah, that sounds about right for a werewolf, and instead meant that. I always kind of assumed that that werewolf was Orlok coming into town to terrorize the folks, because
Hmm.
that's one of the things vampires are tend to be kind of overlooked on, is vampires do have shape-shifting tendencies. It
Yeah.
seems to be more often related to bats in a lot of media, but they do also historically turn into wolves as well.
Yeah. Well, it makes sense because Nosferatu um has a very specific visual style compared to other vampire movies, and I feel like that's in part with the big ties that the original and the remake have to German expressionism, because this film is both versions, in my opinion, is a landmark of this German expressionism because it uses like, especially in the old one, where it uses like these exaggerated
Oh yeah.
shadows, distorted architecture, haunting compositions to create like this really unsettling atmosphere. And lycanthrope is actually associated with Germany because in German folklore, excuse me, I have that McDonald's filet of fish coming up slowly,
Oh
but
shit.
but in German folklore, lycanthrope or werewolf, as we call it in English, um, originated. I believe the word originated back in like the 1500s, where this guy, I believe it was Peter Stump, was a farmer who was accused of being a werewolf and was executed. So
Hmm.
there's a big part of German folklore that is very prevalent in Nosferatu, and I think that's probably where they were going with. But unfortunately, again, because of the film being lost media almost, and then having to pick together and piece things back one by one, there's probably a bigger part of that story that was left out, which was kind of sad to see that the werewolf didn't make a return in the
Yeah,
remake
that was
because
sad too.
yeah, because especially since lycanthropy is a huge, huge part of original German folklore where this movie took place. But I'm not a director; I can't make that decision.
Yeah, I'm just a little sad that I never made it in there because I thought that scene was kind of funny back in the day.
Oh yeah, I loved it.
Why did I say
Plus,
back in the
this
day?
is the
We watched
cutest
this the
werewolf.
same day.
Hmm?
What the fuck did I just say? Back in the day, we watched
Back
this
in the
literally the same day.
Yeah, back in the day.
Both of us watched it. It was we watched this one and then we watched 2024 right after it. I have no
Yeah.
idea why I said that.
Hey, it's okay, James. It's Saturday night at 8:04 p.m.
Yeah, I've just had a very long shift as well.
But I have been homesick for the last 2 days, so I get to go back to work tomorrow.
Yeah,
um. Oh, another thing that now that kind of hit me talking about the old movie is its symbolism and themes. And also I really want to talk about the actual design and the performance of both of our Nosferatus that we're going to be talking about, Max Schreck and Bill Skarsgård, because I think that they both have a really unique take on the character. Um, so what the fuck did I say? Oh yeah, symbols. We'll talk about that first because I have a lot to say about it. And correct me if I'm wrong, James, but this is at least what I got from it. So I feel like Nosferatu, the old one, equates vampirism with the plague, which kind of makes Orlok
yes,
seem like the supernatural disease carrier rather than just kind of like, the sexy upholstery version of a vampire that we know, like, Dracula or Vlad from Dracula Untold. Um, they're very, very mature, sexy versions of the vampire, which I think Orlok doesn't do, which I think works very, very well
Yeah.
when trying to make this unsettling, especially Matt Shriek's version, because it's like super unsettling. Like, because again, like unlike the refined Count Dracula, Orlok is grotesque. He's like bald, rat-like, has like these huge elongated fingers and these long nails, these super sharp teeth. Like he has super unnatural movements and this really stiff, rigid posture that just completely adds to his eerie presence. And again, when we talk about the film, this comparison to the plague, this because again, at the time that this movie came out, we were in like this post World War One Europe, and they were going through particularly the Spanish flu pandemic. So Orlok having like this big deep connection of like rats who are seen as like gross disease carriers. I feel like that comparison between that works very well because you just see this guy, you're just like, ew.
I do think that is a very interesting part, is that the sexy vampire that a lot of us know now is a very recent thing that's been kind of made. I'm not sure when
Mhm.
it was popularized, but I know Twilight certainly was a big kind of inception of them kind of. But I'm
That's an
not
easy
sure if
question.
I can
Yeah,
really.
Dracula.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Dracula, yeah, yeah. What am I talking about? Dracula, where he's like super like attractive looking the whole time.
Yeah, he was like
I
a
remember
very
that.
sexy dude, very mature count
Yeah,
character.
but I like the depiction of Warlock as kind of a like more of like an embodiment of the plague. And
Mhm.
like I said, he's one of my favorite types of vampires, just the kind of like really bizarre looking, these big, like, well, that's an interesting thing I've noticed about this. Oftentimes when you talk about vampires, the eyes don't get focused on. But in both Nosferatu movies, the eyes of Orlok are very focused on. He has these very large, very observant eyes.
Mhm.
And despite also looking, rat-like, I think he's also very bat-like, especially in that aspect.
Oh
Because
yeah.
bats are also kind of seen as like vermin, and his large, like super watching eyes have a lot of life to them in both of the films. I just think that's really interesting.
Yeah. I feel like when you say the bat like, I feel like that's definitely apparent in the remake because like you could see how like he's very rat like in the 1922 version, but when you're talking about the remake, like his build, he's designed so differently, but like he's super like tall, muscular, but he also has like the sense of like just absolute like a repulsive, like just disgusting nature about him. Like he has sores all over his head, he has these huge deep open wounds, and he has like the way that his fingers are compared to like the old version, like his eyes, like just his facial structure and his ears, they just look super bat like. And I think that was, yeah, I didn't really notice that until you brought that up, actually.
I was actually, when I was thinking bat, like thinking more about Max Shreck's version, because I do see the rat appearance, but it's the ears of the character specifically
Mhm.
that kind of the ears and the eyes that really remind me of bats.
I guess we think very differently about that because I think the Shrek's version is very brat-like, and then
Yeah.
Scar's version is very bat-like. But that could, I think it's also just maybe like the behaviors that they give off in the movie. Because in the original, to me, he's like very sneaky. He just kind of scuttles around like a little rat,
Yeah,
and
I gotcha.
then in the remake, he's just very like, I'm not gonna hide. I'm gonna be right here. Just very bold, confident, which I
He is
think is
very
something that kind
regal
of just, yeah.
because he is a nobility originally.
Hmm.
But a interesting thing. Oh yeah, that's another aspect about the just how blatant Orlok is that in both films, Orlok doesn't really hide. A a thing that I noticed, particularly in the original with Max Schreck, is that Count Orlok does not seem to care if anyone thinks he's otherworldly or like
Hmm.
this vampire that they've heard tales of. In that first section where Hutter cuts his finger, and almost immediately Orlok gets up and tries to eat it,
Hmm.
and very blatantly does that stuff. And funny enough, in the first movie, the townsfolk do not seem to be afraid of Orlok.
Yeah, they're more worried about that werewolf.
Yeah, this was changed in the remake. I know it's very limited. It might have been just like cutscenes as well. It was very limited at the time because it's pieced together from bits of lost media practically. But the townsfolk do not seem to be afraid or worried of Orlok because the second Hutter mentions that he's going to Orlok's castle, they don't even bat an eye. They're more worried about his safety for the creature that's wandering around outside.
But in the remake, when he mentioned Orlok, everyone just stops talking. They look right at the guy like, is this guy fucking insane? Where is he going?
Yeah, which is very familiar with the Dracula story.
Very. But I feel like the remake was able to do so much more than the original can't because it's not held to the same copyright guidelines as it was back then. They were able to have a lot more freedom to kind of draw from Dracula, but then again, I don't think that they really did or they needed to because even just comparing the two Nosferatu films together, the way that Eggers just kind of like talks about, you know, because if I've never seen any of his movies, but I've heard that he made The Witch, he made The Lighthouse, which I've heard is very, very good. But
I
from what
bought
I've
that.
heard,
I'm gonna watch that.
yes, I can't wait. But what I've heard about his directing style is that he's very well known for historically rooted horror films. Like, I hate using this word, but this is the only word that I have to compare. Slow burn horror, like super period accuracy, and he's apparently a really awesome master of psychological dread, which we'll talk about when we kind of dive more into the remake. But oh my god, what the fuck was I saying? What was I saying? God, I lost it.
I'm sorry.
What was I talking about?
I'm not too sure.
What do you mean you're not too sure? I was just talking to you about it.
You were mentioning some stuff, but you started going off on a side tangent and then forgot.
What the fuck are we talking about? Oh no. Oh god, no! It'll come back to us maybe. I don't know. Um but yeah. Oh
Oh, you're
man.
talking about what Robert Eggers making period pieces that were kind of slow burn.
Yeah, but there's a reason why I brought that up. I think I was trying to respond to your question. I failed. Um, I don't know. I'll think about it. But anyway, so this, Edgar's he has all this stuff under his belt, and and I'll ask this question. Maybe I'll jump that question that we had in our head. But to me, I feel like because Eggers, before the film released, stated that his version was to be more gothic and disturbing than previous adaptations in an attempt to possibly restore the film's original dark fairy tale elements. Do you think that's true? Because I do believe that he did that well.
I think he did it exceptionally well.
Mm-hmm.
I thoroughly enjoyed the movie. I'm sorry, I got a little sidetracked here because I tried looking up pictures of Bill Skarsgård as Nosferatu,
Mm-hmm.
and I was Count Orlok, and I found a bunch of other pictures
Oh no.
because when media were reporting on this originally, holy shit, did they pick terrible images?
Please tell me it's
Because
not that you must bounce on it.
no, none of these pictures I'm really seeing from some of the early ones, especially from the Prague, and
Mm-hmm.
some of these other pictures, has an other role of Bill Skarsgård and an other picture of Count Orlok from some other actor, and it's talking about them like that's what he looks like in the new film.
Oh no.
And for reference, let me just send you this picture right here.
Yeah, could you do that? I'm
This is
very
the one that caught me
curious.
off guard because that's not in the movie.
Oh my gosh. I think that was one of the remake the adaptations because there is more than one adaptation of Nosferatu. I hang on
Yeah,
because I think Willem Dafoe actually was a version of Nosferatu.
yeah, I'm confused because I also found this webpage from the Rolling Stone No, it's from Indigo Music. That's bizarre right here. Why did I think this was? Oh, because it's talking about fucking Mick Jagger. That's what I thought it was Rolling Stone. Where it seems
What
like
the
there's a lot
heck?
of strange reporting going on
Interesting.
around the beginning of this because this is a new film, but
Hmm.
I'm seeing just a bunch. Oh, is this a DeviantArt fan
Oh no.
made? Hold on, this is weird. This is a DeviantArt fan made poster someone made
Yo,
for the
what?
2024 one.
That's insane.
I thought that was like another movie.
That's crazy. That's actually really good. That's actually a really well edited picture, I'm not gonna lie.
And there's this one off eBay. Why is this
Oh
on
my,
eBay?
that's really awesome. But
It's just weird seeing it from like Robert Eggers, Nosferatu, Bill Skarsgård, Rose Depp. That's the movie we watched, the
mhm.
24 one. But
That's not how it looks in the
that's not
movie.
how he looked at all.
Not at all.
That's
Um,
confusing the hell out of me. What's going on here?
yeah. Oh, to answer that. So I did look up all of the Nosferatu films that have. I love how I can't wait to edit this video because I've noticed that I've said Nosferatu and then I've noticed that I've said Nosferatu. I'm gonna have to keep a tracker of how many times I say it incorrectly. But so we have the 1922 version, then we have a 2023 film, the 2024, and then we have three other things that I think is supposed to be either like not spin-offs, but like I know that one of them, I think either Vampire in Venice or Nosferatu the Vampire um is the Willem Dafoe one where he's actually portraying Max Schreck making the film.
Yeah, because it's about the making of the film and like
Mhm.
and stories that are associated with the making of the film, right?
Yes, correct.
Which is really interesting. I need to watch that at some point because
Mhm.
I've never heard of a film
And then
like
there's
that.
another one called Shadow of the Vampire. That's all I was able to find with the Nosferatu name.
Yeah, but that's just weird that there's so many different made posters of the new one that don't look like the new one.
Yeah. I think it's just like when I think that just kind of goes for anything where if like you once you like hear that something's happening, people just kind of put in their own hands to kind of like make, like put in their own creative liberties like, I want to before we get anything about this film, I want to see if I can try to crack the code before actually anything drops. So I think that could be what it is. They're just trying to like figure out, what could this film look like?
Yeah. It's just bizarre that came up when I typed in Skarsgård Nosferatu.
I love that though. Um, let's see. Oh, yeah, another thing. Were we talking about folklore? I feel like that's what we were talking about.
They were talking a little bit about that earlier when we were talking about lycanthropy. Lycanthropy.
Yeah. I can't wait to play back this audio when I'm editing this podcast. Be like, that's what I was trying to talk about. And the night went absolutely downhill from there. Cool. um, but again, bringing up Robert Eggers, um, he has a big love for folklore apparently, and I feel like that from what I've heard, you know, in his when he's making other films, and then kind of like what I've noticed from watching his version of Nosferatu, um, it seems like he did do very deep in research because Nosferatu has big ties to Eastern European vampire myths. And
Yeah.
additionally, which I think is also a very interesting fact, is when we analyze and look at the 1922 version of the film, at that period of time when that film was being made or being released for the first time, everyone in that area was, going through the Spanish flu epidemic. Whereas in 2024, excuse me, when the new film came out, we have much more modern anxieties that could have influenced this movie, such as the COVID pandemic, societal decay of different things, which I feel like could, especially looking at how Count Orlok is, comparing the 1922 version to the 2024 version of the character could have been a huge inspiration to reshape how Orlok's presence is interpreted in these two versions of the film.
Too bad we don't get to see more, well, interpretations like this very
Mhm.
often. Because when you think of vampires, you think of a very specific thing. But vampire myths have existed for a very long time. It's only Dracula has become the most popular vampire myth, so a lot of them are inspired off of Dracula.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I'm not saying Dracula's bad. I fucking love Dracula.
Mhm.
Like one of my, he's my favorite universe. No, he's my second favorite Universal monster. Second favorite. First is Invisible Man.
Of course it is.
But I, it's just a shame you don't see some of the more ancient versions.
Mhm. I mean, don't get me wrong. I also too love Dracula because it's a classic. But when analyzing Nosferatu and how Count Orlok is compared to honestly, I feel like the story of Nosferatu does it better because it's I don't know what it is. It's just the way that especially in the remake. God, the remake. Um, I know people are like, "Oh, it's gross and horny," but
I like the
we'll
remake.
get
I
into
thought it
that
was very
later.
good.
Hmm?
I like the remake. I thought it was really good.
I love the remake, which we'll talk about the gross and horny later because I have a lot to say about that. Specifically, the ending, I have a lot to say about. But um, when we're talking about the film, just the way that the events of the film happen, like the characters, like their motivations and stuff, are just even though they're inspired by characters that already exist in a different form of media, the way that they're you know portrayed in their thoughts and feelings and the things that they're going through are depicted so much gravely than that of Dracula, especially when talking about Ellen. Holy cow.
Oh yeah, it seems to focus interestingly a lot on Ellen, and that's kind of
Mhm.
rare for films, especially of the 20s. There, that they would spend a lot of time on a female character.
Mhm.
Definitely very unique.
Yeah, but just like
I
cinematography
love how she's handled in the new one.
oh my god, I can't
She
ooh.
basically is the main character of the new one, honestly.
Oh my gosh, she is. Cuz another thing that I really like cuz and this is just my opinion, so if you don't agree with me, that's okay. Both James and everyone listening. But to me, when looking at Ellen alone as a character, she in both movies, it's obvious that she's kind of just this sacrificial figure. But like in the original, she's well, in both films, she's present the film presents a tragic view of heroism, in my opinion, where it kind of like highlights this idealism that sacrifice is necessary to fight evil, which is a pretty standard thing when looking at horror movies,
It's interesting
especially
how dire the sacrifice is in the movie, though.
pardon.
It's interesting just how dire the sacrifice is in this movie, though.
Oh yeah. And I'm really trying to wait until later because I have a huge tangent about the ending. Um, so I'm gonna put a pin on that for now. Because I want to make sure I don't forget anything else before I get into my long tirade about it. But um, big thing, especially looking at just Ellen alone as a character, is again not trying to dive too deep into it early, but obviously you can't deny it in the remake there's huge sexual undertones, like
Oh yeah.
major compared to the original, because again in the original it is hinted at Orlok's obsession with Ellen, but in the remake Eggers leans into this idea of vampirism as a deeply unsettling intimate horror, which again you could take that as you will depending on, and I feel like depend it's really interesting in this way because I feel like when especially when talking about horror, the things that you go through as a human being, your experiences, your thoughts, and the things that your morals. That's the word I'm looking for. I feel like they're a huge make or break of how you feel about certain aspects of movies, especially or themes, especially in horror. Because talk like, obviously when we're gonna be probably talk. Oh, I guess we should. We're definitely gonna be talking about sex when we get as we get to like the new movie. But and James, feel free to disagree with me. But and sex in general is so taboo and uncomfortable because I feel like it taps into deep-seated fears, societal anxieties, and like blurred lines between desire and danger. And horror as a genre thrives on exploring the things we fear the most. And
Yeah,
historically, sexuality has been linked to themes of like sin, punishment, loss of control, super deep, heavy stuff, which a lot of people don't like in general and makes them very uncomfortable if they think about, especially if they suffer from like anxiety, paranoia, like, you know, certain traumas that they've gone through in their lifetime that has kind of like altered their brain chemistry when thinking about certain scenarios like that. And I get it. So when horror incorporates sex, whether through seduction, temptation, or in worst case scenarios, violation, it often forces audience to confront these primal, sometimes unsettling emotions. And I think the big reason for the big reason for this oh my god, I can't speak, the discomfort and the stigma is solely cultural, because in many societies, especially western ones, they treat sex as something that's private, moralized, or even shameful, while horror, by contrast, is meant to, again, be shocking and transgressive. Combining the two can create a sense of unease because it challenges norms, whether that's by showing sex as dangerous, perverse, or even empowering in a twisted way, like when we're talking about Ellen, which I think now Nosferatu does, it does very well. Because Ellen, especially when talking about like, the characters, Ellen and Orlok, in you can see that in the original, Orlok has like this obsession with Ellen that's not super conveyed or talked about or relate to. It's just kind of something that shows that happened. Meanwhile, in the remake, their relationship feels more charged and consensual rather than playing the part in a victim predator dynamic like the original. I feel like this makes it more complex rather than just fearing the monster. There's this element of contraction, attraction, surrender, and even tragic romance. And that interplay between fear and desire is what makes horror and sex such an effective dynamic if done right, but also why it remains such a difficult topic for many to openly discuss, because it forces us to acknowledge the way danger and allure go often hand in hand in both fiction and reality, which again, you have to do right for it to work.
it's really too bad that sex gets viewed so negatively, and especially Western culture and a lot of cultures, honestly.
Hmm.
It's a shame because I feel like that leads to a lot of anxieties and problems people have with intimacy.
Oh yeah.
Like, I feel like that's a heavy reason why so much stuff happens involving that, especially like the idolization of sex for young males.
Hmm.
Because it's kind of like built up to be like the thing, in a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just kind of a shame that that's kind of the view it has on such a perfectly ordinary biological function.
Hmm. I'm so sorry about my tirade, by the way.
You're good.
But it just something that kind of popped in my head when you talked about that. But yeah, like it's because it's such a weird thing how certain things like that, especially when like, specifically talking about sex, is just like it's deemed as like something that's super important, something that needs to be done at some point in your lifetime. But there are certain things where that's like, you can't do that yet, or you're gonna go to hell if you do that. Like it's kind of like this weird thing. It's more of like instead of it being treated as something that is supposed to be a deeper bond between two people, something that's supposed to form a connection, it's kind of treated as something's like icky, yucky, and
Yeah.
it's like, ew, you're doing that, you're disgusting, and you're gonna go to hell, kind of thing. And I think
Yeah.
that's something that it needs because also when talking about it in the aspects of education, if you have that mindset about it, where it's like, it's icky yucky, instead of being something that, you know, could be used as a teaching moment for younger people. When you apply something like that, it's going to cause bias in certain areas where that shouldn't have that at all. And I think that's a huge, huge problem in certain cases, because then what are you teaching younger people that might be going into stuff like that for the first time, and they're like, I'm uncomfortable, I don't like this.
Yeah. I think it's an interesting change in the recent ones. The
Mhm.
the actual different relationship that Ellen has with Orlok. Because in the original movie, she seems to be simply terrified of their new neighbor, the fact that he's staring at her every night.
Mhm.
And Orlok's obsession isn't that big. It's more he just seems to like her a whole bunch.
Yeah.
But in the recent one there, it's even implied that they've met before, and that a lot of Orlok's actions in the movie were directly influenced upon trying to find Ellen again.
Yeah. It wasn't even said that they just knew each other. It was stated that they were married in a past life.
Yeah,
Because at the opening of the movie, they were saying that, like, oh yeah, you have to renew your vows, which is the entire reason why the ending went on as it did. Because I think a lot of people, when they watched the movie for the first time, I think they were probably so caught up in the actual, like, vulgarness of the scene at hand that they completely forgot the context of which why the things in that scene happened the way that they did. Because especially in older times such as that, because I think it was like 1800s Germany, and I think is when the remake took place. Um, Especially in, like, cultures where, like, Christianity or, like, Catholicism is was, like, had a super heavy hand over people in those time periods, that when, you get married, you're supposed to consummate your marriage via sex, and I think that's a big thing that people kind of forget happens,
yeah,
because they were so caught like, "Oh my god, she's fucking this disgusting dude." But when you realize that they're like, "Oh, yeah, they were doing renewing vows," that makes a whole lot of sense for why they chose to do that, and why Ellen specifically chose that as a distraction to hold off Orlok long enough so the sun could kill him. I think it's a really smart decision, honestly, to me.
yeah. I think it's smart too. Uh, let's see. I don't even think that scene is terribly vulgar, by especially a
Mm-mm.
lot of the stuff that is in modern media.
Yeah, because they
But
don't really show anything.
yeah, well, they show a fair bit, but they don't show a whole bunch. Like it's still there's not much you see. It's not like a pornography film.
Yeah. No, no, far from it. That'd be very strange if
Yeah,
it was, but, hey. Um,
that
because
would be
when I
bizarre
heard
from a
about the
filmmaker standpoint.
pardon?
That would be bizarre in a filmmaker standpoint.
Yeah. Which how I heard from what I've heard about this movie before I watched it is what I was kind of getting. I was like, is this movie really going to be as steamy as I keep hearing it is? And when I actually watched, like, no. I mean, it's awkward and uncomfortable in certain cases, but then again, that's the whole point.
Yeah,
But even then,
I
I think that it's for a reason.
I don't personally find sexual scenes in movies and media terribly uncomfortable. I know it's a personal thing.
Mhm.
Frontal nudity and things like that, even of males, has just never really bugged me. I honestly
Yeah.
wish this is the thing. I wish that, and I like that they did this in Nosferatu with Orlok. I wish they would do frontal nudity more often with males because I feel like that a lot of women get hit with that a lot. With
Mhm.
and a lot of times it doesn't make sense for some of the characters to be covered in certain spots from like the actual story standpoint. And
Mhm.
I like the fact that when Orlok sits up in his tomb and he's fully naked, he stands up. Why would he care that he's not doesn't have clothes on? Why would he be trying to shield himself there?
I mean, he's 100-year-old dead vampire. Why the fuck would he give a shit?
Yeah. And I'm not advocating just I'm not trying to see more dick. That's not what the argument here is. I'm
I
more
was
just
just like,
saying that I
I
wish
was
nudity wasn't treated as terribly as it oftentimes is.
I love that. No, you're pop off king. No, it's just so funny because like I know exactly what you're
I can hear
getting
it.
at.
I can hear
What do
that
you
shit.
mean?
I can hear that.
What do
The
you mean?
the fucking you want
Ooh,
more male frontal nudity? Hmm.
mm. You know what's really funny, James? I can't wait for your podcast. It just goes silent.
No, I was laughing at it. I think it cut out there. I couldn't hear you for a sec.
Oh yeah, I did. Maybe I'll hear it in recording. Oh my god, man, James, you're such a what a girl's girl.
Okay. I
But
do, like I said, I do wish that nudity wasn't treated as terribly because there's the argument of violence, which is arguably a lot worse than nudity,
mhm,
really not being given a damn about, and
yeah.
oftentimes.
No, I agree completely. I think that you have a really good point on it, especially let me think of it. No, Midsommar.
Yeah,
Midsommar did that.
yeah,
Um, and I know that that was like a big like, oh, what the fuck. But when you look, because I know some people have very strong feelings about Midsommar, but I love Midsommar. I think it's a gorgeous film in the aspect that it does horror so fucking well. Like just the psychological mixed with just because in Midsommar, the characters are like portrayed as real people. Like I could you could absolutely see people being like that.
yeah.
And in the case of Christian, I think that one of the most interesting things is that is disgusting as it may be, and I'm gonna try to keep it nicer in the tone where I don't sound like a fucking pervert. In the case of Christian, because when we see him fully nude was after the mating ritual, if you want to call it that. I'm doing air quotations, by the way.
Yeah.
That scene,
The bit where he gets, drugged and raped.
yeah, exactly. That scene is not supposed to be glorified by any means. Like it's not,
I really
and I
respect
don't.
the actor because I remember they gave him the option to not have frontal nudity in that scene. He said, "No, no, no, no.
No. We gotta do this because
I
I
may as
gotta.
well."
Yeah, which I because I think his argument was he was like, no, if women have to do it, I gotta do it. It's only right.
Yeah, and I really appreciate him. It's funny that
Hmm.
it's always super respectable actors that
That do
play
stuff like
the
that.
most horrific, horrible
Characters.
characters. Because Christian in the movie is a dickhead.
Oh yeah.
He's a
Oh
fucking
god,
dick.
he's not a nice person.
He's not a good guy. He's kind of a just head empty moron.
I think head empty moron is more of like an understatement because legitimately this guy was the epitome of a bad partner. Like this guy sucked.
What's interesting is he isn't outright abusive. He's more characterized by the inaction that he takes in pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very passive person and passive in a bad way.
How do you mean?
And the fact that he doesn't do much. He doesn't remember his girlfriend's birthday.
Hmm.
He doesn't put forth a lot of effort in a whole lot. He rips off his one of his friends friend's theses in the process of them writing it. He A lot of his actions are the simple way or the easiest way. And it's just interesting that he's not a bad character in the way of he's outright trying to be malicious. He's more just really lazy in a way.
Yeah, but I think that when talking about that scene, I know we're talking about a different movie. I'll try to keep it brief.
Yeah.
When talking about it, that scene, the narrative, because it's not, it's more than like like, and I don't by any means call it a sex scene. It is specifically rape. Like I see it as nothing but that.
Yeah. He got
But
drugged.
he got drugged. Like, bro, he didn't know what he was doing. I think that's the textbook definition. But that scene in specific just further adds to the movie's themes of like betrayal, grief, and transformation. Like just because it's so unsettling and intensifying in the scene's unsettling atmosphere. Because that atmosphere in that room is so fucking creepy. It's
Yeah.
gross, but ugh.
Hmm.
But just seeing him like that, it's just that thing of like being exposed after going through something like that is just something that's often seen through a woman's lens in horror, and like you said, not often through the lens of a guy. So seeing that is kind of relieving, but I think that's also just like gratifying in the way that it kind of unifies that situations like that can be experienced by all people.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'll talk about Midsummer later. I have a lot to say about that movie too.
I would like to talk about it at some point.
Yeah, great movie, great movie.
We should watch The Lighthouse and then rewatch Midsummer and do like a double feature on that one.
Oh yeah, I think that'd be a great idea. Because I feel like I've heard it's very similarly filmed, but not really, like style wise, I guess. I don't know. I don't know how accurate that is, but
I really want to watch The Lighthouse because it's another black and white film. I've heard two things about it. I've seen a clip of Willem Dafoe going Fortnite and laughing, and I've also heard about a apparent mermaid figurine masturbation scene.
I'm
So
so sorry. What?
yes, apparently one of them carves from what I understand, it's probably completely wrong, but in
Ew.
the slight passing that I've heard about it in The Lighthouse, one of them carves a mermaid out of wood and then jerks off to it.
What the fuck?
That
I mean,
sounds
if you're lonely, keep in a lighthouse. I mean,
I really want to know what the fuck's going on with that. I want to know if that's real. That's hilarious if it isn't. It also has it's Bill Pattinson and
Willem
fucking Willem
Dafoe.
Dafoe at the same time, and that sounds like it'd be
Damn,
a fun cast
that
to
sounds
work
a
together.
good cast, man.
It's only like two people in the entire film from like no, there's probably more, but it looks like there's only two. Anyway, we're getting
Yeah,
really off topic from Nosferatu.
it's okay. Hey, it happens. It's fine. Um. Oh yeah, another thing that I really liked about the remake, um, the the lighting, the palette, the sound. Oh man, the costume design and the set.
The costume design is amazing.
The casting is so good, dude, in the
Oh, the
movie.
casting
Oh
is perfect. If you compare them
gosh.
with how the original actors looked in 1922, they look damn near identical.
Mhm. Oh my gosh, yeah. Like it's oh man, and dude, Lily Rose Depp fucking killed it, dude.
You know, Lily Rose Depp did fine. I will say, I've seen the jokes about her having a five head.
Oh my
It
god.
is funny.
Yo, don't be mean to her.
Look, we gotta accept the forehead in the room. I'm
Jesus my
sorry,
god.
Lily Rose Depp. I'm sorry. You're a great actress. It was a good film. I liked it a lot. Come on, I can't. It's funny.
You're not the person.
They pulled the character's hairline so far back. Look at a picture of the character and you tell me.
Oh man, damn, that bitch's forehead's so big. I bet all her dreams were in IMAX. Anyway, I'm gonna continue.
Oh shit.
I'm sorry, Lily Rose. I'm sorry.
I wonder how
God.
she feels about those jokes.
I
I hope
hope
she
it
doesn't
doesn't
hate
hurt
them.
her.
I hope she doesn't hate them. I hope she understands the jest.
No, no, legit. She's a very attractive lady, though. She's
Yeah,
very
she looks
beautiful.
great.
She's very
It's just
beautiful.
this specific character. It still looks beautiful,
Hmm
but does have an exceptional forehead.
I love how this
It's not
went
even
from.
bad. I'm not saying that's a bad thing either.
I love.
It's not a bad thing. It's just
I
interesting.
love how this fucking this conversation went from Midsummer to the lighthouse to fucking Lily Rose Depp's forehead in Nosferatu.
She doesn't even like her actual hairline's normal. Like from what I've seen in pictures of her, it's just the specific character hairline's up.
Yeah, they did tie her hair back very, very high. And that bonnet definitely doesn't help because it kind of covers her hair.
Yeah, like every picture I see of her, she looks ordinary.
And
But
then when you add the bonnet,
yeah, when they add the bonnet, they just really accentuate the.
gosh. Oh, another thing, talking about Orlok, the actual Nosferatu itself. Honestly, I think he is a great representation of death itself. Like he's silent, creeping, and just overall inevitable. Like
I
his
like the shadow
presence.
shots a lot. The
Oh
shadow
god,
shots where he's doing stuff.
Oh yeah, like the one in the original where he's like kind of like coming up the stairs. Oh man, that's like a creeping up the stairs. So iconic. Like that's a
Yeah.
well known shot there. But like I find it super interesting how like in both versions, Orlok's presence doesn't only just bring personal horror to like Ellen and her husband, but also just widespread devastation. Because like,
Oh yeah, it
I
wrecks
like
all the
this
town.
girl. Yeah, I like this girl. I'm gonna go ahead and move so I can move across the street for him. Just watch her through the window, and he goes there and he just kills like an entire ship of people, and he
Oh,
just starts going ham on Wittsburg. Like, oh my
remember
god, everyone starts dying left and right.
in the new movie, this is a spoiler for anyone from this. So warning right here, spoiler.
As we
All right,
need to put that in like,
like
let's
especially
see,
this part right here.
an hour late.
This is a very big portion of it. All
Yeah,
right, we good?
good.
Everyone past the spoiler. The bit
I'll put,
where Orlok straight up murders those two kids in front of their mother.
oh my god, that was a
That
great
was
scene, dude.
insane. I didn't expect them to be that blatant. But you hear the kids screaming, go in there and just snap. And then
Oh my
Orlok's
god.
just standing there. He didn't even directly drain them. He just fucking killed them.
Yeah, dude, the way like I feel like that's super romantic because like the way that he just fucking drops their bodies. Oh my god.
It's so
He just
it's such a
throws
good
them.
scene. It's horrifying. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, he throws them down. Like holy cow, like the little disregard he has for people is just insane. Like cuz at that point like he man, like it's just in that point it's like
Do you think the concept of
he is
witches are partially inspired off of vampire novels?
maybe perhaps, but it's super interesting because like it scenes like that where it's obviously evident that Orlok in both versions is not at all a good guy, but
Yeah.
something about that scene specifically and the others that are so different just showcase that he is exactly what he has been for the last 100 something years, just a complete monster. Like he is an awful, awful person. I can't even call him a person. He is not a good dude. Like he has little to no regard for anybody. He all he wants is just personal gain, and that's even absolutely evident in the way that he talks to Ellen. Just because in the silent film he doesn't. There's not much conversation, but in the remake, because we could hear like their voices, we could see their faces, their facial expressions. Just it's just because I think that's another interesting thing because in the 1922 version, silent films were, very new, especially when Nosferatu came out, because that's like the peak of when films started being released.
Yeah.
But at that point, people were slowly starting to pivot away from theater to film. And at that point, because again, we couldn't have sound, like talking, the only way you could really get people's reactions to situations just over exaggerated acting.
Yeah, because you didn't really have much to work with. You couldn't talk. So you had to just put it all into facial acting.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that is awesome about the remake is just the all that the actors give, like especially Lily Rose Depp. Like, oh my goodness, the emotion and the performances that she gives to Ellen, just you can see the psychological torture that Ellen is going through throughout the course of the film. Like it's
Oh yeah.
awesome.
She's
Like
getting harassed the
she does
entire time by Orlok.
amazing. Hmm?
She's getting harassed the entire time by Orlok.
Oh, she dude, she has it the worst. Like, oh my god. Like the way that her that Hutter's friends are treating her, like the god, what was his name? Harker? Not Harker. What the fuck was it? Gotta look it up.
The ship.
Um the shipyard holder. Like
Yeah.
he's in charge of the shipyard. Characters. Name.
I remember him being the shipmaster. I forgot.
Harding.
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 Harding has a pretty big role in this movie as well. He
Yeah.
isn't seen a whole lot in the original
Friedrich Harding
Nosferatu.
is the character's name,
Yeah.
which
He
we'll
doesn't
talk
get.
about him. But
He's got a pretty big role in the recent movie. A lot
oh
of the
yeah.
characters in the 2024 remake had their roles really just kind of brought out in the 2024 one,
Hmm.
where because like we said, they didn't have much dialogue beforehand. With the remake of it, it gives you a lot more room to kind of bring out their character and you know introduce them more. Aside from a
Yeah.
couple little interlude
Yeah.
what are interlude titles, right? That's what those are called.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I believe so. But dude, Harding had it awful too. Like, because in the original movie, like I think we saw him like maybe once or twice upon Thomas leaving to go to Orlok's castle and then him coming back from Orlok's castle. But in the remake, oh my god, this poor fucking dude. Like he out of the kindness of his heart lets Ellen stay with him while Thomas is out, going to on his business trip essentially. And he has to watch his best friend's wife go through all of this shit. And, obviously he doesn't believe that, anything supernatural is happening. But at that point, this dude loses his entire family. Like his wife dies, his children get fucking brutally, and his wife just gets absolutely fucking obliterated, essentially. Um, like this dude
Yeah.
in the span of a few hours loses everything.
Oh, that poor
And
guy went through so much shit.
yeah, like, dude. But and another thing I've seen about the movie is like how fast the funeral scene. Like one complaint that I do have about this movie is the concept of time a little bit, because it seems like certain scenes are being sped up a little bit. We're like, okay, when is this happening in this timeline? But one scene that originally kind of had me like that was the scene where like right after Anna and their children die, like it's like morning after their funeral happens, which I'm like, okay, that's kind of very soon. But at the point that I realized, like, okay, at this point in time, these people think a plague's going on, so they're probably like wanting to go ahead and do their service so they can go ahead and dispose the bodies as soon as they can.
Oh yeah, that was a big thing at the time. Was trying to make sure that those bodies immediately got out of the house during a plague.
Yeah. So I can understand that, but I will say the movie's concept of time is a little wonky in certain spots, but you know what? I'm not gonna be too harsh on it because I still understood the story. I'll take it.
Yeah, its pacing is a little odd at times. I will understand that.
But does that make it a bad movie? Absolutely not. It's a very small grief. It's very minor. So I'm not gonna go through it, but you know, um bringing up God, what was his name? Harding? Harding.
Yeah, Harding.
Um I think that another big theme that was super highlighted in the remake was the idea of the fragility of human civilization. Just kind of like as Orlok comes and rolls into town and this plague just goes all out. Just I one thing that I wrote down in my notes while watching the movie was just how eerie and near abandoned the streets of the town were. Like it just kind of to me reinforced this idea that human structures are fragile against supernatural forces, and that doesn't mean like buildings and stuff, but also just like human mentality. Because the way that we see Ellen while she's trying to deal with Orlok, and then like what he does to like Harding and Thomas, just he just absolutely fucking crushes these people's soul, and it just shows furthermore that Orlok, excuse me, has like little to no regard for these people's feelings. He doesn't
Yeah,
care what it
absolutely
does to
no
them.
regard.
He just does it for his own personal gain. He doesn't care about anybody else other than himself.
He's so old. I doubt he even sees humans as humans anymore, or even
Oh,
himself
probably
as human.
not. Also, like what you were saying earlier, is that another thing that was really cool is in the remake, it was very heavily implied that he's nobility, which it's very exaggerated upon in this film, and I think they use that to his advantage because he's like, I'm a count. I'm better than y'all. You guys stink. You are just little specks of dirt underneath my boot kind of thing. And that just kind of feel like it in times kind of puts forth his behavior even more.
Yeah.
Cuz he's like, "You I don't care about you. I'm just gonna go ahead and use you because you're my wife and you belong to me 'cause I like you. Oh my god, this is your husband. He's in the way of you. I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of him." Like, it's just like this guy, it just doesn't care. He's like, oh, 2 kids? I'm gonna go ahead and snap their necks because I want to. Like,
And why would he give a shit? He's not even a
this,
person anymore. His humanity's been gone for years, centuries even.
oh yeah, but no, this guy legit sucks. Like, this guy's not a good person by any means. But
Yeah.
I feel like that works when, especially considering that he is like the villain of this. He is the monster in the monster movie. It works. Excuse me. It humanizes him in an awful way, very similar to, like, say Jimmy and mouthwashing, where the threat is something that you can see in people. Again, in this case, it's not so blatant, it's more supernatural because he's a fucking vampire, but it's
Yeah.
that same concept where you
Yeah.
can see, like, even like the most human of humans can be this horrible, this cruel.
Yeah. He's exceptionally cruel, especially in the remake there.
Mhm.
I feel like it's everything that they wanted to make in the original movie.
I think so, because again, like we were talking about earlier, they had more creative freedoms than they did back then in 1922. They were able to do a lot more with the remake than they were with the original, especially since, again, the old movie lost a good portion of what it was supposed to be.
Yeah. Like I said,
But
it's impressive that we even have the film.
oh yeah, 100%. And that's why we have this beautiful remake that we got. Um let's see. Oh, another thing I thought was super cool is in the 2024 version, the again we were talking about the modern anxieties, like, destruction and decay of societal norms, and the modern anxieties, like, pandemics and stuff. I think they really do reshape Orlok and how his presence is interpreted, as well as, like, like themes that weren't seen in the original, like, isolate, like heavy isolation, madness, and huge things like religious fanaticism that weren't stated or as well as even outright in the original.
Oh yeah.
Because in the original focus was a lot more like creepy, eerie, and it was very eerie and atmospheric, but Egger's version just really, really includes like this visceral horror elements, like these more disturbing visual body horror and psychological torment that isn't seen in the original film. And I feel like that goes in hand with like these modern anxieties. Because it's
It,
like,
it's a very good modernization without changing
oh
a
yeah.
whole lot about the movie.
Especially looking at, like, the interaction, like, because that's what I thought was very interesting. Another thing I thought was interesting, I should say, is, and I remember you brought this up when we were watching the original movie, is that in the original, the relationship between Ellen and Thomas were, like, very loving, very, like, "Oh, yeah, I love my husband, I love my wife," kinda thing. It was very cutesy, and they cared about each other. That is shown in the remake.
Yeah.
But you could see that isolation, that madness getting to Ellen a lot more than in Ellen of the 1922 version, because it's like her husband being gone is just like opens this door of weakness in Ellen that allows Orlok to kind of imprint in her brain. It's like, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and bother you now. I'm gonna be like the stick poking you. Like, and it just fucking drives her insane. So at that point, when Thomas does return, all of this shit just hits the fan, and Ellen just kind of breaks mentally.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
she just loses every fragment of her sanity that she had upon being married, because she even stated that Thomas was the person that healed her in from these things that she felt originally being bound to Orlok, and Thomas was like this freeing point for her, and she feels broken that she could be the cause of his demise, which kind of helps her be like, I gotta sacrifice myself because if not, my husband's going to die. Which I think makes her a very strong character, gives her more internal conflict in this emotional weight than in the silent film's simplicity.
I think I've just realized this is the first time I've seen this version of the trope.
Oh, what
Very
trope?
off the sacrificing yourself for your lover is typically a male thing in a lot of
Hmm.
media.
Oh yeah,
You notice that?
yeah.
I
It definitely
just
is like
realized
the
that just now.
earliest depiction of it. Yeah, it definitely is the of it. Which I mean, there's hints of it in the original, but it doesn't. It's not as expanded in the until the remake.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, I just
again, Eggers has such a way of portraying moral and physical taste so well that it just heightens this film's horror aspect beyond because it at this point her paranoia and her anxieties is more than just Orlok as a physical threat to her. It's just like it's everyone that's being affected. And he even says that if you don't submit to me, the world as you know it's going to die. And that's fucking scary to say to somebody, especially when they're already in a fragile mental state.
oh yeah,
Because
he's
at that
fucking
point,
with her all the time.
because at that point, she's like, shit, this is my fault. And that's an awful, crushing feeling to have as one human being, feeling like that you can't do anything unless you die. Like the only thing that you can do to stop it is to die.
Yeah, and it's strange because it does wind up happening, but still on her own terms.
Oh yeah. Because again, like I think it's time to have ending. But
Yeah,
like it's at this point I can't go bounce around it anymore. But yeah, like talking about the ending, especially with how Ellen, just either way, the ending is tragic. Like Ellen dies. There's no way around it. It's the same in each iteration of the story. But in the original, I feel like personally, it's pretty straightforward in the resolution. Because Ellen realizes that somehow Orlok can be defeated by sunlight, and she sacrifices herself by keeping him distracted until dawn. First light, so ray of sunlight hits him, Orlok collapses, and he just vanishes into a puff of smoke. Poof, he's gone. And it's still an eerie ending, but it ultimately provides like this sense of finality where Ellen dies, but her sacrifice saves the town and her husband from ox plague. Done deal.
I think it's one of the only times I've seen something wind up that way, where
Oh yeah.
the character kind of loses and wins at the same time. A lot of media tries to steer as far away from the main character killing themselves,
Hmm.
and I think this is one of the only times I've seen that as an option, and it doesn't feel jammed in there, you know?
Yeah. Especially when you talk about like modern horror, like especially like that, like the stupid line in Scream, but it's such a big line when comparing it to like other medias of horror. It's like, oh yeah, this is the part where the killer comes back for one big scare. We don't get that. The hero doesn't come back from the dead to be
Yeah,
like, I have raised from the dead, my love. I am back to you,
that
or
happens
like,
really often. I feel like that
mhm,
honestly, I don't know if this is just me. This might be a personal thing, but I find it unsatisfying where the big sacrifice that happens doesn't stay.
yeah, because that's like for nothing.
I don't like when big moments like that don't have consequences.
Oh yeah, no, I agree.
That
Because
bugs the hell
again,
out of me.
yeah, no, I completely understand. Because when that happens, it's like, wow, that was absolutely pointless. That was absolutely for nothing. What the fuck was the point?
That's why I have a hard time with a lot of the films, especially superhero films that attempt to try and kill off their characters because I know they're coming back. We've seen the
Yeah,
comics. The comics that kill them and bring them back all the damn time.
yeah, it's
You're gonna
like,
have a hard time jerking a tear out of me for Clark here dying and being buried as home. Sure, it's nice and
yeah, 'cause
sweet,
it's a fine. He'll
but
be back in 2 weeks.
he's coming back next movie.
Yeah, like legit. But the thing that makes so here's my tangent. Are you ready, James?
Yeah,
um, so because in the remake, which I know a lot of people, okay, all right. So in Beggar's version, the ending, at least to me, and this is whole my opinion, And you can agree with me as much or as little as you want, or just like, no, you're wrong, that's stupid. But to me, this ending for the remake is more complex and layered than the original because it's established earlier in the film that Ellen has this deeper pre-existing connection to Orlok. So
Yeah,
to me,
it's the
her
opening
sacrifice.
scene.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Remember how important opening scenes
straight.
are? We talked about it for a lot of these things. It's the big thing I always talk about, and the main thing I always think about in filmmaking. The opening scene is one of the most important ones.
I will say sometimes depending because there absolutely are opening scenes that are stupid, but if they're done right and you have the ability in the remembrance to make the connections back to those opening scenes, like what does in Nosferatu, like
Yeah,
you get all those stuff because it has the opening scene, which is right off the back. It's like, holy shit, what the fuck is this? Because
like just like how I've talked about it previously, like opening scenes set how you view characters. And this
mm-hmm,
opening scene for Ellen, it demonstrates her fragile psyche. It demonstrates her interesting connection, and it raises a lot of questions.
yeah.
And it's such a good opener. I think it's one of my most recent favorite openers for a movie,
Oh, dude,
aside
it's
from
so
my favorite
good.
aside from my favorite opening in a movie in House of a Thousand Corpses.
Oh, that was a great opening.
That's a big
Um,
standout for me, and that whole thing I always talk about with how showing a character first off bonds you with that character no matter what.
mhm,
No matter what actions they commit, you're probably gonna like the first character you see.
yeah, exactly. Because
Like
it's
with
just
Spaulding, he fucking murders a guy. Like, admittedly, it seems justified in the time because he's killing, uh, he's killing someone that was he's trying to rob his place. But the way it's shot, and even his overkill there, and his seeming like not like who gives a fuck attitude about taking people's lives,
mhm.
it's such an important scene because now you like Spaulding. You've met Spaulding first. You've seen him defend himself. Your first interaction in that movie is you being happy that Spaulding just fended off his attackers.
Mhm.
I just
And you just meet like this lovable so to what you believe to be a lovable character that then that imprint's just kind of ingrained in your brain that can't leave you throughout the movie. Because when you see him in later, so it's like, oh, it's Captain Spaulding. Look at him, he's
that's
here. Look
Spaulding.
at him.
And that's why it has a hard time. That movie has a hard time kind of establishing with their victim characters, where because they go in there and they're kind of dickheads to Spaulding,
Hmm.
and it kind of makes you not like him. It doesn't make
Yeah,
you like him at
exactly.
all, and you start rooting for the villains
Yeah, because
because they
like
just watched your buddy from the first scene. They've harassed your buddy from the first scene. You don't like him.
yeah, because it's like it's especially like in Nosferatu, it's such a strong opening because like like Ellen pledges herself to him eternally, leads like this chilling sequence where he just seduces and ultimately assaults her, which, that's this whole thing. But like this dark and unsettling introduction sets the tone for the entire film. Like it
Yeah,
establishes this profound and ominous connection between Sherlock before they even mention it in the movie. That's big.
yeah, it's huge. It's such a well done intro.
Exactly. Like you, right off the bat, we meet the characters, we feel this tension, we feel their complexity and their connection to each other before it's even seen, even mentioned in the film. You already have that in your brain, and you're like, okay, going into this is so. Especially if you've already seen the original movie, off the bat, everything that you expect this movie to be gone, clean slate.
And I think it's a really good counter opener to the
Oh
original
yeah,
movie
100%.
because
Because in
this
the
one's
original, it was just words.
yeah,
This
and
we get a visual.
like we can't really fault them because it's like the very first vampire
It's
movie.
silent film, of course.
It's just like there's not much you can do because no one's had time to practice how filmmaking happens.
Hmm.
But I text crawls have a really hard time immersing people in a story, and even
Yeah.
like large amounts of text,
Hmm.
which is kind of a main reason why I enjoyed the modern Nosferatu a bit more than the old one.
Yeah. But anyway, um,
It's murder
yeah,
mystery.
right off. Oh yeah, 100%. But again, like you're talking about the opening, right off the bat, we get this idea of like the relationship. So, with that being established early on, to me, her sacrifice compared to 1922's Ellen, emphasizes themes of consent and autonomy right off the bat, as this Ellen chooses to confront and end Orlok's terror, contrasting to the other Ellen's more passive depiction of it. And I know what you're thinking about the sex scene it turns into, but as uncomfortable as it is, I believe it does serve a good purpose, really. Edgar's version really heavily leans into these themes of desire and consent and psychological intimacy, whereas the 1922 film presents a more straightforward horror resolution. I mean, sure, Ellen, the original film, sacrifices herself the same way as 2024 Ellen does, but it's framed. Ah, excuse me, I hit my elbow on my
Oh
table.
shit! I heard that. Damn.
Okay, glad to know. But what the fuck was I saying? Yeah, the two Ellens sacrifice themselves the same way, same reason, same entity, everything. But the way that it's framed, but in the old version, it's framed as a selfless act of heroism rather than a moment of sensual or psychological complexity. It's more passive and just kind of like, hey, this happened, rather than, and like again with the opening, give an explanation that more clearly states why Ellen did what she did. She did it to save her husband and save the people in her town. And when we think of Orlok in this version, with evidence we've gotten by watching previous events, opening, all that stuff, to me it's clear that his obsession with is absolutely one-sided and purely monstrous,
Yeah,
reinforcing him as this symbol of death and plague rather than like a seducer that everyone calls him. This scene is by no any means sexy or steamy. It may seem that way because it's established early on that Ellen and Orlok have a more established connection, which makes their dynamic more layered, but Orlok is not a good guy. Again, he's a monster as he's been in both versions this entire time.
I
But the
definitely
way
don't
that
think it's seduction. You're right.
no, no, not at all. But the way Ellen willingly offers herself to Orlok shows that her sacrifice is not just about stopping a vampire, but it's also about agency. Her demise is so much more tragic and erotic rather than just purely horrifying. And the way the film frames Orlok's feeding on her likely emphasizes tension between danger and allure, which is a theme often presented in Gothic, but it's heightened in the remake. Murnau's horror is rooted in the fear of the unknown disease, where Eggers taps into something deadly. It's the blurred lines between love and destruction and the idea of surrendering to fate rather than simply being a victim of it. And I think that analysis of what he does in the closing rather than Murnau's closing is so powerful.
Yeah, I think it's an incredibly powerful movie, especially that ending there.
Mhm.
I still think it's interesting in that Orlok kind of screws himself over in both films.
Oh yeah. He
Because
does,
something
doesn't
that's
he?
not that, he finally gives in to this whole lust thing and very carelessly stays with and feeds on Ellen in both way past the actual like time of the of sun up.
Oh
And you'd
yeah.
think he knows that that shit's gonna kill him. He's slept in like a coffin and sleeps every day. It's interesting that he seems to still have that amount of humanity in him that he can get lost in that
Yeah. Which I
because
think.
he might be
Oh, go
super
ahead. I'm so
cold.
sorry.
He might be super cold. He's very distant, very otherworldly, basically not a human anymore. But still like sex.
Yeah. Which, talking about, like, when we were talking about, which, yeah, talking about, first off, talk about sex just shows how powerful of an element that is, because it's, again, showing off this humanity that Orlok has. Is like, every human being, that typically, not everybody, of course, so I can't say everybody, but most often, or not generalized, everybody, that's something that most general people want in their lifetime, is that thing of intimacy, to be close to another human being and to not and to fight this feeling of isolation and loneliness.
Yeah,
But it's also this thing of like, it's his demise because, you know, that's how it goes. But a thing that I thought was super interesting watching the remake versus the original is in the original, it's just like it kind of daylight comes so suddenly and he's like distracted by it. But in the remake, his reaction to it, because he looks up and sees that the sun's setting, but Ellen just kind of grabs him and is like, "No, you're staying here, buddy. I know you want to." And
Even
he
tries
just
to open more.
does. Yeah,
Yeah,
he just does. He doesn't
and that's
leave. He just submits to it,
and that's
which I think is
interesting
super
that I remember
interesting.
that because that's the only time in the whole movie where Ellen has power over him.
Exactly. I'm like, "Oh."
It's flipped. The power dynamic flips in that exact moment.
Mhm. The power of pussy, man.
You can't call that shit the power of pussy.
Yes, I can, cause I just did, boy.
Uh,
But yeah, okay, so talking about the original. In the original movie, Orlok meets his demise in the same way. His due to his deception with Ellen Hutter. She sacrifices herself by keeping him distracted until sunrise, causing him to be destroyed by the light. If Orlok was able to reflect on this outcome, he might feel a mixture of fury and disbelief, because after all of his cunning and terror, he was undone by his own hunger and an act of human bravery. His reaction might be like, frustration, regret, or even grudging admiration for Ellen's resolve. But in the new one, it's just like really ties into this feeling of like how intimacy has power over people, both good and bad. And I think that's
yeah,
something that not a lot of things talk about because of, again, how taboo of a subject sex is.
yeah, legitimately.
But just like even like the little things in this movie make it so powerful. Which it makes me really upset how people like just say that this scene's like, oh, it's disgusting and gross, and like, oh, it's doing that just because it's shocking. But when you really analyze stuff like this, it makes it so much more than that. It's the little things in these things that make it like, yeah, it's shocking and gross because, like, again, they didn't need to put that sound effect in there. All I'm
Oh,
saying,
that sound effect.
so
Oh
gross.
my god, the sound effect when he sluts that shit.
Ugh. That was gross.
Both of us cringed because of the fucking sound. Not like, oh man, this is sick, it's icky. Just like, oh,
Like
wow.
it was like putting a banana in a thing of peanut butter. It was disgusting.
It's a horrific sound.
It's so gross. It's like the squish.
It is a squish.
It's
Like
squish.
it's disgusting.
It's like, I feel like I've heard this in a Green movie. No, I feel like I've heard this in a Terrifier movie. But like just the way that they're able to hold this. I'm so sorry, the squish popped in my head again. It derailed my thought completely.
So
Damn it.
fucking funny.
Like we literally like I remember like we like this we just heard it and we're just like we look at each other like ugh.
I laughed my ass off at it. It was
We
hilarious.
just started laughing like wow, that's out of all the sound effects they could have possibly picked for this scene, that's what they went with. Ew. It's like that's
God damn it.
disgusting. Yucky. You know what? That's the one thing that I will say is icky yucky about the scene. Just that one sound. Like, oh, you could have picked something so much better than that. Why did
I
you go
swear
with
the
that?
sound designer just did that to break the tension.
Yeah, like, this is too tense. Squish.
Fuck.
but but yeah, like God, like everything about the remake is so I know this probably turned to talk about the remake more like, oh, the remake's better than the one. I will say
Both are decent movies. I just really
both of
like
them
the
are
remake.
good. Yeah, but just like I'm saying, like the remake, when talking about the remake, like just the way that it applies certain things in the movie, like the storytelling, the exaggerating, the more enhanced storytelling, the characters, being able to see and feel their emotions in these situations a lot better in the than the original. It just makes it for me because, like, yeah, you
Yeah,
get the story of the original, but the way that everything pieces together in the remake, you feel for the characters and the story a lot more, and you're able to kind of like instead of just watching these events happen in real time in the like in the original, you're able to feel it's like a man, this sucks. Oh my god, you poor thing.
yeah.
It's completely different.
I
But
was really happy with it.
Yeah, but oh my god, that sound effect is in my head forever.
Oh my
You know
god.
what? Maybe that's why everyone hated that scene. It's like, okay. Oh, and there it goes. The series is gone.
I thought it was funny.
I thought it was hilarious. I'm like, yo, they did not need to pick that fucking sound, but you know what? It's funny. God, you must bounce on it.
You must
Crazy.
bounce on it. Crazy style. I know that's on the internet.
You do that too well, James. Are
I
you
like
are you a Nosferatu?
I like doing my shitty vampire voice. It's
Yeah.
I that's my common little stupid daydream fantasy is just being a vampire.
Yeah. The amount of times that
I
James has just
was
fucking done
having
that shit to me just to fucking
a
mess with
daymare.
me is, huh?
Oh, it is daytime. Life is having a daymare. Yeah. Oh yeah,
We-
that's a completely separate Dracula movie here. That's
what?
Dracula Dead and Loving
Dead and
It. Don't
loving it.
quote me. Leslie Nielsen,
I was
Dracula,
having a
one of my favorite Leslie Nielsen parody movies.
I love Dracula Dead and Loving It. That's such a good movie.
It's got like 2 stars, but I loved it.
How does that have 2 stars? That's unfair.
I know.
Dude, Dracula Dead and Loving It deserves way more. But that's funny because that's an exact like almost exact adaptation of Dracula, but
Yeah, it is almost exact. It's not even really changed. It's you still get the basic plot. It's a Mel Brooks movie, so it's a little goofy. But if you watch that, you'd know what happens in Dracula.
I think one of my favorite lines of dialogue in the fucking movie was like it was Harker and Van Helsing talking, and Harker's like, "Oh my god, she's alive." Van Helsing's like, "She's Nosferatu. She's Italian."
It's funny as hell.
Oh my god, it's such a good movie. I love it.
Oh my god.
Oh
Yeah,
man.
I really enjoyed both movies. Definitely
Yes.
watch the original Nosferatu. It's a historic movie. I think everyone that's into horror should watch it at least once
Yeah, because I
to see
remember
where it all comes from.
yeah, because I remember both your James, both your like the remake.
Yeah, I don't really fault anyone for not liking a certain movie.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you know.
You can't really fault anyone for not liking a movie.
Mm-mm. Because again, like we were talking about earlier, it's like your experiences that you have as a human being kind of make and break how you feel about certain scenes. Which, oh my
Yeah,
gosh, I had a notification pop up so loud. I hope that did not interject in the audio. But yeah, the things that you go through as a human being or make your break and break of like different point of views about certain things. But it's like it's another thing I think is super interesting is like how people can go through like similar or the same situations and they can watch like specific things or experience certain things and they have completely different reactions to it. I always think that's super interesting.
yeah. I love looking through people's different reactions. Good lord, I studied through that, and
Yeah.
I really wish kind of sometimes that I'd gone into studying psychology more because I
Hmm.
always found it really interesting
It's so
and
interesting.
just the actual way it all works and the fact that I really wish people would look more often past something they enjoy as being good or bad.
Hmm.
I wish people would more commonly look at media that they didn't like as something they just simply didn't enjoy rather it being bad.
Yeah.
I have a hard time calling anything bad except for things that are ill-willed,
Or stolen or
or stolen, like
obviously.
things that are obviously lazy. Like if there's obvious like kind of malice with it or things like I can consider that bad, but I don't really consider any project that has been worked on to try and do something bad. Like sure
So what I'm
the
hearing
quality might be bad, but the film was still a film. Either you
so
hey, I didn't like it, or it wasn't for me, or yeah, I didn't really enjoy it.
So what I'm hearing, honey, is that you did think that Bloody Ape was good.
The quality of the film can be discussed as dubious at best.
I don't think I ever heard you use fucking dubious,
That movie
man.
fucking sucked. We watched. Okay, we tried to give it a chance, but it was really boring.
Hang on. I don't think I've ever heard you use dubious during this podcast, man. You gotta explain yourself. Explain yourself
God
right
damn it,
now.
I wanted to sound academic.
You wanted to sound academic? Alright, explain the Bloody Ape. Jesus Christ.
I don't want to explain that movie.
No, please explain the movie.
Oh my
Explain
god.
it or I will.
You go ahead and explain it. I don't really know how I can even talk about this film.
Okay, so we preface it by saying this. We did not even get to finish this movie because it was so awful. But because okay, at this point, the worst movie I've ever seen was COVID Zombies. Like that, we couldn't even finish that. That was awful. So
COVID
it was
was
this
terrible.
movie. Oh god, it was awful. Like that wasn't even a movie. It was just stolen media, horrifically dubbed over. But we were walking through our, favorite stores that try to find shitty movies, and we see this thing. It was like a double feature. It was The Bloody Ape and something called like Blitzkrieg.
I didn't
We
watch the
had
other
to
one.
get it. We had to get it. So we watched The Bloody Ape because we gotten so busy that we've been meaning to, but we're watching different things. Like we watched, Nosferatu. No, we watched Nosferatu after. But yeah, we watched this movie. And oh my god, like it started off interesting, like it was very entertaining at the beginning, and then it just turned into like slur after slur, and
There's
this
a lot of
like,
slurs.
oh my god.
I would have been able to excuse a lot of that stuff if the film had been more entertaining to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was watching The Bloody Ape. I want to see the ape, and the ape didn't have much screen time,
No,
and that's why I was a little sad.
I will say the best scene in the movie, rape scene. I can't believe that word just came out of my mouth.
Yeah, it's stupid. It is.
I
It's
can't
just a guy in
believe
a gorilla costume, like kind of like yeah, it kind of looks like they're having sex. And then there's a cuts to her just covered in like fucking milk. It's supposed to be like ape jizz.
Oh my god. Dude, no, like, you know what? I almost want to watch. You know what? I wonder if I should just go ahead and just watch the movie to its fullest. Like, I gotta know how it ends. Even if you don't want to join me for it, I will suffer myself through it just to go ahead and see how this movie fucking ends.
I might try to.
Maybe I
I want to
honestly
watch.
legit I want to know.
I want to watch the other double feature. Watch is going to be one of the times the double feature is actually pretty entertaining, but it looks more like it's not going to have a plot
Probably not.
because the cover it's something about World War II Germany, and the cover is just a couple of ladies in like revealing like porn costumes, like military garb. It looks like a pornography film.
I love it.
Why did I say its full government name there?
What did you say? The full government? Wait, what was the full
That
government name?
looks like a pornography film. What the fuck? Who talks like that?
You apparently, you fucking dweeb.
Like calling fucking Mickey Mouse Michael J. Mouse.
Is this his actual name?
I don't think I know it's fucking. I know Mickey's a derivative of Michael, but I
No.
think I put J in there because I thought it'd be funny.
Now auditioning for the role of Marty McFly, Michael J. Mouse.
That's where I got that shit from. Michael J. Fox.
I knew it! I know you too well, man. You can't fool me, James. Also, you know what? Okay, so I wanted to see if I could try to find like the ending of the film. And on the cover of the film, I don't know if this says it on your copy, hun, but it literally has in like big bold like words 100% pure underground trash.
That's hilarious. Even the film's calling itself trash.
Dude, okay, I gotta read this to you. Oh my god, this is amazing. Okay, okay, this is a lot, so just give me a second. Okay, here you go. All right. The Grindhouse throwback, The Bloody Ape, is now available in this limited edition VHS/DVD combo. Blah blah blah. A throwback to crude white trash drive-in classics
White trash driving classic.
like early Ron Ormond and H.D. Lewis, Crocker et al. Have their sleazy hearts in the right place.
It's like the opposite of a certified hood classic. The fucking white trash, sleazy
What
drive-in moments.
movie? All in all, The Bloody Ape offers everything that a fan of cinema do bad needs: violence, blood, nudity, exploitation, satire, nip twisting, ape
Nip twisting?
ravaging, nip twisting,
Did you do
ape
that in there?
rap. I guess we gotta finish the movie. Ape ravaging, hippie genital removal, a nickel and dime budget, and more than anything, a filmmaker who gives a damn. That's all you can ask.
Well, that
Crocker's
sounds like an
depiction,
edgelord.
yeah, Crocker's
I kind of
description of the.
respected the help. I'm sorry, I'm talking over you.
Go ahead.
Kind of respected it until I heard a filmmaker that doesn't give a damn.
Mm-hmm.
Because by typing that out, clearly you give a damn.
Edgelord. Yeah. Crocker's description of the bloody ape speaks volumes about where he was coming from. It wasn't just a guy in a gorilla suit. I think it was.
I think it might have been.
The film tells of the dire consequences suffered due to the inability of people to communicate properly. The film is a plea for mankind to see things the way that they really are, as opposed to how they perceive it to be. Lofty, high-minded, you decide after you see it. I say passionate about his damned work. That is why spent his own. Wow, this is not even English.
That's
That
such
is
a.
why I spent his own money to see through. That is enough to demand you see it. You owe the bloody eight, that fanboy, representing good and gross nickel and dime exploitation horror sludge at its most feverishly enthusiastic and righteously offensive. Keith Crocker's deliciously surrealist indie effort, The Bloody Ape, stands out as a terrifically trashy serving of top-rate tacky fun that's based on Edgar Allan Poe's seminal short film Murders in the Rue Morgue. I don't think it is.
Mm,
I do not think it is. um, what?
I've never seen. I didn't think anyone could talk about that film in a snobbish way, but they can.
Yo,
They definitely
and these are
can.
okay. Have you ever heard of the murders in the murder of the Rue Morgue? Have you read it?
I have not read it. I know that's what the Bloody Ape's based on.
Yeah. Oh my god. So basically, what it is, hang on. Excuse me, sorry, I had soda in it. Came up. But so basically, The Murders in the Rue Morgue is obviously a short story written by Edgar Allan Poe. Um so it was about a dude it's been a while since I read, but it was about a dude in Paris who is solving this mystery of like the brutal murder of like two ladies, and numerous witnesses hear like a suspect, and at the murder scene they find hair that's not human, and basically it finds out that it's like this chimp, um right, I
We've
think it
gotten
was,
so
yeah.
far derailed.
Hmm?
We've gotten so far derailed.
Yeah. Yes. Yes, Nosferatu to chimp murder.
Dear God.
But oh my god, yeah. So, I mean, I could see how it is, but oh my gosh, I can't. I gotta stop. Okay, let me continue reading this last paragraph of this fucking review thingy. Um, Okay, eccentric ventral carnival barker Lampini trains a 7-foot, 300-pound sideshow gorilla, Gorto, to kill all his enemies. Gordo gets loose and proceeds to wreck some major league Mondo Disgusto. Blood spilling.
Mondo Disgusto.
What the fuck? Gut slinging, head crushing, limb rending, heavy on the puke inducing splatter havoc. A hippie hitchhiker gets brutally castrated in a simply smashing scene that plays lovely homage to the infamous Bigfoot gore gem Night of the Demon. A naked
What
chick
the
taking
fuck?
a shower gets mangled. The ape rapes two nude women. A jerky cop has his head torn off. The savage Samayan beats up a lady, beats a lady up and steals her car. I do remember that.
That's funny.
And
That's one of
generally,
my favorite parts of the film.
that was a hilarious part. And generally behaves in a highly vicious, psychotic, and antisocial manner that's more benefiting of your average garden variety sociopathic serial killer. What the fuck?
This is deranged. I do not really recommend that movie.
The movie kind of
48.
it fucking sucked.
I
It lit
I didn't
shit.
personally enjoy it much. Maybe some
It
people might find
sucked.
it funny, but I thought it dragged a little too hard to keeping the enjoyment up.
Dude, that film was garbage. It was garbage. Oh my god. Anyway, gotta get off the
Anyway,
ape
do you
train.
have any more things to say about Nosferatu there?
Yeah, let me get off the fucking ape train real quick. I was about to ask you the same question. But yeah, overall, Nosferatu, Old and New, is a
That's right,
gorgeous
fine,
film.
thank you.
Especially the remake is great. Anyone who says it isn't, rewatch it please because it's great.
I'm so sorry for a moment. I bumped my headset and it muted my entire headset, so I had no idea you were talking until I looked at the screen.
Oh no, you're all good. But yeah. Overall, what did you think about the films and like which one did you think sure I'm already gonna know your answer, but which one did you think does it better?
I adored both movies, but I think simply due to time and the amount of time in between the making of it, the remake has had a lot more time to explore different types of shots, and I
Mm-hmm.
think the new one is personally a bit better of a movie. And it's a
Yeah.
little hard. It's a little unfair to judge it like that because the old movie, like I said, it's Frankenstein together with old parts. It's Miracle We Even Have It. I've said that like probably 3 times now, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a history piece. But I think the newer one's more entertaining.
Oh yeah. But just like it's obviously being from 1922, the movie's gonna show its age, and it does. But just it's a piece of cinema, horror cinema, and we are able to have we have in vampire movies
Yeah,
deserves a respect. And plus, he's like an important character in SpongeBob. We can't forget that.
that's probably how a lot of people got introduced to him. Honestly,
Honestly, that's where I first saw him. Was in the hash slinging slasher episode. Yeah, legit.
right, first saw him too. I wouldn't even know
So
about this film without that SpongeBob episode.
yeah, thank you, SpongeBob.
Yeah, thank you, SpongeBob.
Thank you, SpongeBob. But yeah, like just the silent films. I do like science films. I do like watching old movies because we have what we have, especially considering like the remake. That remake exists because of the original. We wouldn't have the remake if it wasn't for Nosferatu. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, like
you're so
literally,
right.
like it is creepy. Like the original movie is fucking creepy. I will give it that. It's
Yeah.
creepy and unsettling.
This was my very first silent film actually I've ever watched.
It's not my first silent film because I've seen the original Phantom of the Opera, but this one
I
was
want to
very,
watch
very
that.
good.
I really
The
want to watch that.
Phantom was not bad.
The oldest film
Again,
I'd watched previous to this was The Invisible Man.
hmm?
The oldest film I'd watched previous to this is The Invisible Man.
Oh yeah, the 33.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, no, actually, you know what? I lied. This is the oldest movie I've seen, Nosferatu. Because it just hit to me that the Lon Chaney Phantom. Wait. Yeah, no, the Lon Chaney Phantom came out in 25. Came out 3 years after Nosferatu. So no,
This is the
Nosferatu is the oldest movie I've ever seen.
Yeah, me too.
Shit.
Damn.
That's crazy. Ooh. Because the book, Phantom, came out in 1910. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Damn. That's crazy thinking about that. So, wow. The Invisible Man came out 11 years after Nosferatu.
Wow. Damn.
Whoa. Whoa, bro. But yeah, I think that's all I got, really. I know that we didn't really talk about the original, really, from a cinematic standpoint, but, like, just the stories are very similar, and I'm gonna be completely honest, as much as I do adore this film, the remake, you're able to pull a lot more from the story altogether.
I gotcha.
Which makes it I mean, if you wanna talk about a little bit of the original, you can, but
I suppose we
I
could.
mean,
We
yeah,
are.
they're like the same thing, and you get
Yeah.
more of the story from the new way, so about the characters and compare with their old and new counterparts, the new movie, but, whatever.
Yeah.
Alright, I guess that's it, right?
Yeah.
I think I'm good, man.
But everything I have to say as well. Other than
I think
give
I
both these films
bounced
a
on it
shot.
crazy style too.
Christ.
Oh god, that's gonna be turned thing. You're gonna use it against me, aren't you?
It's pretty funny though.
Hmm. You're
But yeah, definitely feel free to watch either of these films. I think one's important for historical standpoint. The other's just really
absolutely.
entertaining.
Mm-hmm. And the beautiful cinematography that is because they have the old movie and new movie have charm each because obviously the first one's silent film and it's like one of the first, but the remake you get like a lot of the color palette,
Yeah.
you have a sense of like the town, the setting, the characters, all their behaviors, a lot more, so you get different things from each movie that you don't get from the other, and I think that's a great combination to have,
Yeah.
especially in pulling. It has to be like the best remake I've seen now of any movie, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Definitely. I agree.
Anything else?
That's all I've got.
Alrighty, well, excuse me. All right. I guess we will bounce on out.
Bounce on it. All right,
Bounce on
folks.
out.
Stay spooky. That's terrible.
No, I love it.
Lordy.
You must stay spooky.
God damn it.
Alrighty. Have a good night, everybody, and stay Nosferatu-y.
Stay spooky.
What?
That's
Don't
hilarious.
judge me. Shut up, James, or else I'm gonna count your Orlock.
Okay.
Stay spooky, everybody.